and I, covered antennas, but when it actually happens, when you have that converter box hooked up on June 12th, and you have, a good antenna, and you've been watching DTV, you're going to have to rescan your converter box either on June 12th or June 13th. And this, it gets complicated for people to understand, but what your converter box is doing, again, I'll use the example of channel 4 here in town. Channel 4 is sending out their digital signal on channel 30 something. However, your converter box has technology in it that makes it look like it's coming into your TV on channel 4.1. It's a technology that allows, because stations wanted to keep their own branding, like channel 4 has been channel 4 for 50 years, they didn't want something to become channel 34. They wanted to stick to 4, which everybody knew. So your converter box makes it appear as channel 4 on your TV. However, because on June 12th, some stations are going to switch. They've been broadcasting on channel 34 in digital for a while, but now that analog is going away, all of a sudden they're going to broadcast in digital on channel 11, or they're going to broadcast in digital on channel 4. So they're actually going to switch where they're broadcasting in digital from. So what you're going to have to do is when you initially set up your converter box, you run a scan. Now you're going to have to rescan it so that the converter box finds where the new digital channel is, even though you'll still see it on channel 4 like you have been. Does that make sense? The whole rescanning part of it? Because that's going to be really important, is that channels are going to switch around on the broadcast spectrum, and your converter box has to rescan to find all the channels and then be able to put them in the places that you were used to seeing on your TV. Did you ask the question? No? Okay. Sure.
Well, if you have a storm and it blows, if something happens to this converter box.
Again, during a storm, there may be some issues, like if you have satellite, sometimes you see this happening, or at least I do, because I have satellite, where there's a lot of wind or hail, and that's just going to be the case.
Cable now.
I'm sorry? Yeah.
Happens with cable now.
Right.
You have to get another converter box then, right?
No.
Oh.
The broadcast signal gets affected even a little bit more in digital than it did in analog with severe weather. So when you have severe weather, it's not a problem with your converter box. It's just really the conditions outside that are affecting the reception that's coming in. But yeah, absolutely. I would definitely, if you don't have a surge protector, I would definitely recommend
No,
getting one.
I have.
It's definitely always a good idea to have one. Anything that I didn't cover as far as some of the issues that folks are going to face hooking up the converter box? There's also. Are you familiar with some of the online resources? DTVanswers.com is another website. That's the NAB's website, and that goes through really any question that you might have. And if you go to the website, it has the questions listed up top. It says, how do I hook up a converter box? What type of antenna do I need? It walks through everything, every sort of question you might have about the process of upgrading to DTV. So that DTVanswers.com, DTV.gov is another great website. For folks that have an issue right now, the number to call is 888-CALL-FCC. And the way it works is that there's an automated system at the beginning that asks you questions, such as, do you subscribe, is your television hooked up to cable and satellite? So then immediately the recording says, well, you're not affected by the transition. If there's any issue, call your provider. So it walks through some of the easy questions, and then if it's something that is more problematic, you get referred to a national operator. If he or she can't help you solve the problem, let's say it's a local reception, I can't get channel 5 in my community, they have numbers for that particular station, and those stations are ready to take those calls referred to from the national operators. So they've kind of set up a system to try to, so we're not overwhelmed by millions of phone calls. We try to weed out the calls that are easily answered, and then if the more problematic calls, they get worked down to the local level. Some local stations may be promoting their own station's channel to handle calls, but the majority are referring folks to 888-CALL-FCC.
Have you heard anything about a big surge of people hooking up the cable to save all these problems? Do you think that helped the cable companies?
It's hard to say. I think it's been kind of a wash where you have, because of the economy, some folks have been dropping their cable or trying to go over the air, or just simply watching TV over their internet service, you know, watching TVs that way, or Netflix, or whatever. I know a number of younger people doing that approach. So I guess it's been a kind of a wash. We'll see what happens after June 12th if a lot of folks are having trouble, but I guess it, you know, because of the economy and technology, I think it's been sort of a wash.
It just reminded me of a question. I thought I saw on a program somewhere that when you get the new box, that you can get more channels from the regular broadcast channels than you used to get with analog.
Absolutely. It's called multicasting. And so like I mentioned earlier, because digital is a more efficient use of the airwaves,
Yeah.
the same station in analog, they were using 6 megahertz to broadcast one channel. In digital, they can use the same amount of megahertz to broadcast 3 different channels. For instance, the NBC station here has 4.1, which is the main NBC programming. But on 4.2, they have a weather channel where it's the radar and it talks about the weather forecast 24 hours a day. And on 4.3, they have a station called Universal Sports, which all these Olympic sports competitions, anything really related to the Olympics, they show on this Universal Sports channel. So, so again, that same amount of space, you can get 3 different channels that you were used to that you didn't get before.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. The question there is, does that not make it competitive with cable? That somebody might be able to get rid of cable and get this for free and have more channels for free than you had before?
Exactly. Well, as the broadcasters, we're certainly trying to promote that. That, you know, for folks that don't want to pay for cable, you have the broadcasters doing 3 different channels, and the PBS stations have been really advanced too. In fact, here there's the PBS station has an HD channel, and then they have a special cooking channel, and then a kids channel. So they have 4. So you know, certain stations are broadcasting, you know, 3 or 4 channels. So if you can deal without having ESPN or CNN or some of the other cable channels or C-SPAN, it is a much more cheaper way to go, and there's a lot more programming that people aren't aware of. And you know, as the digital programming rolls out, broadcasters are going to be doing different things where they're going to be sending their programming to cell phones. We're working through that right now, so you'll be able to watch, you know, your local station's newscasts on your cell phone. So that's some of the different technologies that they're working on with digital. But yeah, the biggest change is with the extra channels, but also even folks that think that they buy a high definition television, that they think they need to get cable and satellite. Well, your broadcasters are sending out HD free over the air. You can just pick it up with an antenna. You don't even need, if you're living in the city, you really don't even need a great antenna. You can just stick, you know, I had an HD television. I went to Best Buy, I bought this $20 RCA flat antenna, and I was getting HD from Baltimore. I was picking up the stations from Baltimore over the air. You can't do that everywhere. This is a relatively flat area, but it really is amazing if you are curious and want to just go to Best Buy and try out an antenna, and then maybe you want to return it later on. It really is something to see once you hook it up. And you know, with high definition, some of the cable and satellite companies compress the high definition picture so they can squeeze more HD channels in. Well, you get the best high definition over the air because it's uncompressed and it's not tampered with by, you know, the cable or satellite companies that try to squeeze it into their channel lineups. So it's just something extra to think about. Any other questions? Well, I hope that was helpful. Again, you know, we're here to help. If you have any questions, I can hand out my card to you if you have any. If you talk to some folks that are having reception issues, we can certainly try to get those resolved for them. But more than likely, if they're having trouble, it's an antenna issue, and they're going to probably need to upgrade their antenna in order to pick up DTV in the future.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike. Thank you.